Hello, here we go. It's the Cop-Out Podcast.
What's happening, everyone? Welcome back to another Cop-Out Podcast and the return of normal footy. Thank fuck for that. After the internationals, after 3 games, what is that? What is the point? We just want footy. We want normal footy. Bring it back. I'm Mick and I'm joined by freelance journalist Steve Carson from Empire the Cop. How are we doing today? Nice to have you back on again.
Yeah, no, it's great to be here. Always good to jump on and have a little chat with your followers and yourself.
Yeah, all good, lad, all good. But on these shows, what we tend to do on the preview shows is before we kick off with all the footy news and Brazilian stuff and Klopp presses and whatever else, we have a little 2-minute bottle question, which is just a little random as fuck question. I post it every day before we do a show. So if you ever want to get like a little random question in there or topic for us to discuss, just let us know and I'll try my best to get it in there. But this one today is from friend of the show, Moving Unit on Twitter. And the question is, if you could live in an animated TV series or film, which one would you choose? And what character would you choose as well? What are your thoughts on that one, Steve? That took me a while to think about this one, you know. Yeah,
it's not something that came to my head straight away. But you know, it's I've actually got an answer. It was something that definitely got my attention during lockdown. The kind of things that got me through it, the music and that. I'm going to say Moana, the film, and I'm going to say Maui, purely because Dwayne Johnson's boss, and some of the song that he sings in it, it's a belter as well. I've listened to it quite a few times during lockdown. So I'd say Maui, Moana, but we'll leave all the apocalyptic stuff out, and we'll just go with the sun up on the beaches of Hawaii.
Yeah. Oh, boss, what a shout! I mean,
why you?
I should stop sitting on the fence, but I've got a few that I'm just going to throw in there and let me think about it. So we've got The Incredibles, got Mr. Incredible. That'll just be class, wouldn't it? Let's be honest. And you've got Sully from Monsters Inc. just because he's a big bad fella, and I reckon he'd just be boss to be. And I think even Mike Wazowski's a bit of a legend, isn't he, as well? But Wreck-It Ralph, I only watched that like probably in the last year or two. And that's underrated, that, you know. When you ask people if they've seen it and they say no, you're like, oh, you've got to watch Wreck-It Ralph. I think even number 2 is better. So I think even that world would be just, boss to be in. And obviously John C. Reilly's the voice as well, so even better. But let's have a little look. We've got Daz in the comments. Looking forward to this, lads. We've got Yuki again. Good morning, Yuki. I ask this every time. What time is it in sunny California? I think every time I go to say sunny California, I say Sully, California, and I don't know why. I don't know if that's because I'm just an idiot or what. We've got Paul. Evening, Paul, mate. How are you doing? We've got Aiden. How are you doing, mate? Yash again. Good evening, Cop-Out. Nice one for jumping in, mate. Doug's answered the question and he's put up because I would like Doug to talk as he could talk for hours on end. Yeah, good show actually. I think that I mean, whatever floats your boat. Like if you wanna be a dog, then fucking go for it, innit?
Not a bad life.
Not a bad life, yeah. Just fucking chewing on bones and just going to sleep all day and that. But let's get stuck straight into the footy stay, and obviously the whole Brazilian stuff that's been going on has just been absolutely mental, hasn't it? And obviously Klopp done his press today, and he said that he doesn't know what will happen at the weekend. In this moment, we have to see what other people decide, and then we will again accept that, probably do what people tell us, and try and win a football game. It's just mental of that. It's like 2021. There's been a global pandemic. The whole of footy has just been completely, in terms of fans being in stadiums and whatever else, has just been completely put to the side for fucking however long. We've only recently got that back, thankfully. And now the Brazilian FA are like starting to cause shit for no reason. It's been mad, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's nuts. And you've seen it as well with all the South American FAs, as far as my knowledge anyway. It's been pretty much all of them, because I know Mexico have done the same thing. It's a problem. And like you say, it's sort of, it really should be dwarfed by the other stuff that's going on at the minute. You know, the main reason, the only reason that Liverpool didn't release, and the rest of the Premier League didn't release the Brazilian and South American players is because of the pandemic. Like you say, there was issues over in Brazil, so they didn't feel comfortable, so they didn't allow it. And, you know, like Klopp said himself in his press conference, that the only people that are going to be suffering from this, obviously, is the clubs as well, but the players are going to be the ones that are suffering from it. And you know, you've got to think the Brazilian FA have decided to punish 2 players that have suffered, you know, terrible losses in recent months. You know, I don't really want to go too much into that, but, you know, you feel like maybe they just let them off. It's not really their fault. It's out of their control. Maybe have a word with the Premier League if you've got some problems. Don't take it out on players that, you know, have had some tough times recently, you know, like all of us have as well.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I hadn't even thought of that. Obviously, Fabinho and Alisson have had personal tough times recently. So yeah, that kind of capitulates it a little bit more, to be honest. But now you've mentioned that, but we just need to. I don't know. It needs to. I mean, we're less than 48 hours to kick off now, and it's still not been sorted. I mean, we were speaking off air before we started about, like, Pep said something a bit earlier on in his press conference that if he doesn't hear anything different, then they're going to play, or words to that effect. And that's just, I mean, Klopp obviously was sitting on the fence because he doesn't know what's going on, and neither does anyone. But the fact that Pep said that, that's a bit of a mad one, isn't it? So maybe he's getting some more different information than everyone else is.
Yeah, I mean, maybe someone at City's just told Pep not to worry about it too much. It'll all be sorted. Maybe they're a bit more relaxed over there. You know, if something happens, they can afford to pay these penalties. It's fine. No one's taking City to court. No one can afford to. It's stuff like that. You know what I mean? Maybe that's what's going on. I don't know. But, you know, yeah, I mean, Jurgen Klopp, a little bit of an aside really to that would be, at what point does Jurgen have to cut off his plans? Like, at what point does he have to finalize his team and go, all right, we have to plan now, we have to play this player instead of this player, and move forward with that?
Yeah, because I mean, like, it's not a case of just like, oh, an hour before, like Sunday League, you go, right, there's the team, lads, there you go. Like, I've only just decided this at the minute because of who's turned up and who's, like, still got a hangover or whatever else. It's carefully meticulated plans that have got to be executed against a really good Leeds team. So you need your best players. And we're going to come on to team news and who we think is going to play with the Brazil lads and without in a bit, but it's just not good in terms of getting ready for the game. And as like Chris says here, like, could Rafinha be a bigger loss for Leeds? And I think we'll touch on that a little bit more later, Chris, when we get to Leeds and Bielsa, and Klopp spoke about him earlier today. But Doug's just said Fabinho hardly plays for Brazil now too. Just ridiculous, this whole thing. Edison being out now means Scott Carson plays for City as it stands. Yeah, I mean, I can't believe that the age that he is. I thought he was older, to be fair. He's had a hard paper round as Scott, hasn't he? But yeah, I mean, and nice little segue. Speaking of Brazilian lads, the Cop Eye podcast is sponsored by Cali Designs. So if you want to go and get a little Bobby Brazilian Kung Fu kick, or a celebration of Gerrard's trophy lift in Istanbul, then there's a massive range of products available on calidesigns.co.uk. So he's a local lad, he's a local red. He just wants to create the most iconic moments in sport. So there's loads on there. He's got t-shirts, he's got prints. I keep saying this, but I've got a print up here. You can't see. I need to rearrange this. It's not good marketing at all. But I've got a t-shirt on the way, a little Bobby one. And if you use the code COPIPOD10 on checkout, then you can get 10% off. So if you fancy a little, Christmas is fucking 3 months away. But if you want to get the presents in nice and early, then you can use COPIPOD10 to get your stuff. Which, I mean, there's loads of boss stuff in there. So go and have a look at that. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the Brazilian stuff, let's go back to the Klopp presser then. And obviously, he got asked about Trent as well, which, I mean, I couldn't not talk about this because it's just a proper mic drop and shut the fuck up moment where he got asked about, like, Trent getting put into midfield, and he replied, "Why would you make the best right back in the world a midfielder?" And I just fucking love that. That's just that is why we love Jurgen Klopp in it today.
That's it, yeah. I mean, he just says what we're all thinking, and you know, you could argue that he maybe is a little bit biased towards Trent, but I can speak subjectively and objectively. He is the best right back in the world, and absolutely, he's the best right back that is available for selection for England. So I have no idea why Southgate thought it was a good idea to be shifting Trent out of his natural position for the sake of Reece James. I don't get it. Reece James, quality player. You know, I'm not going to sit here and pretend he isn't, but Trent is the best right back in the country. No idea why he was ever put into a different position, and I'm quite happy the Klopp came out and basically just said, you know, what's Gareth been playing out there, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, he didn't even. I mean, I made up like, but they didn't. Trent didn't get on the pitch against Poland, and neither did Hendo. So that's like, I mean, that benefits us. But you're just kind of thinking, what's the thinking? I mean, the Euros team, neither like Trent was injured and Hendo was coming back from injury, so I understand he wants a bit of maybe consistency in the middle of the park with Rice and Phillips. But if Jordan Henderson's fit and available, and he's been playing games for Liverpool, then surely he should be playing for England as well. Which it's a bit of a mad one, that isn't it? But I mean, I don't give a shit. He's going to be fresher for us, isn't he, off the back of it? So it's all good.
That's it, yeah. I mean, you can see as well with Southgate with how slowly he's looking at integrating Joe Gomez back into the England squad. That maybe he might not like at the minute he might not prefer the likes of Trent and Henderson because they've not, like you say, they've not played consistently with England. Obviously, Hendo was kind of there at the Euros, but wasn't really a main fixture. And Trent obviously missed out through injury, so he's probably just going back onto players that he's reliable with. He's probably trying to keep the momentum of the Euros going, I would imagine.
Yeah, and I mean, expanding a little bit on the Trent bit, like it's always got to be like black and white, hasn't it? With like the English press, it's got to be like if you're a right back, then there's certain limitations, and I think with the Klopp system, I don't think those limitations really exist because I think Klopp went on to say that he plays right wing, he plays in midfield, and I think case in point, you look at the Burnley game where the Mane goal, and it's Harvey Elliott in his position, Trent is inside that little ball around the corner to Mane, and we scored. And it's those movements that it's the fluidity that we all know Klopp. That's what Klopp likes, and it's having more players that are more comfortable in more positions means a more fluid Liverpool team, which means that we're harder to mark and therefore harder to stop. That's what you want, isn't it? You want Trent to be bombing wherever he wants to because you want to give him that license because he's that good, isn't he?
That's it, yeah. I mean, Klopp touched upon it there, and you mentioned it as well, the fact that if you watch some of our games this season, you'll actually notice that Trent is not a rigid right back. I mean, we've known this for a while now, that he is more of a Roman wing-back type character that will go up the pitch and contribute to the attack as much as he does defence, maybe even more sometimes. You know, if you watch quite a few games this season, certainly if you watch them back, you'll see that Trent and Elliott, like you touched upon there, they do swap around a lot. I think that might have something to do with, you know, Elliott being quite new to playing at this level. You know, he's sort of gelling into the squad. Trent maybe he's been asked to sort of kind of, you know, take care of him a little bit. But yeah, that fluidity that we've got, it is part of why Liverpool are such a good team. So yeah, I mean, it's brilliant to see it is. And Trent, yeah, the best players usually aren't really tied down to one specific position. Trent will continue doing what he's doing, mixing it in with the wingers, mixing it in with the midfielders, and it's great to see.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, his delivery on the ball. I mean, defensively, he gets a bad rap. I still don't think he's that bad. I mean, it's just like highlighted the Old Trafford performance where he got ripped by Rashford when he was like fucking a baby, and it's like that's kind of, it's just a lazy argument, isn't it, that he's bad at defending, whatever. But Chris just put a comment in here. Do you think that they may have had words with Southgate about playing Trent in midfield, so was left out versus Poland? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'd be surprised if Klopp had words with them. But what do you reckon?
No, I wouldn't really imagine. I think if they would have had some words in private, he probably wouldn't have really addressed it much in the press conference. I imagine Klopp's comments today is kind of as direct opposition as he'll probably get. I think the way Klopp might see it is when Trent's with England, that's a different Trent. You know what I mean? When Trent's with Liverpool, that's all that really matters to Klopp. And to be honest with you, that's all that really matters to me as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm happy that, I'm glad in a way that people keep writing Trent off, because when he does then perform and gets loads of assists and whatever else, then it's all the more better to rub people's face in the mud in it. So, yeah, I mean, we usually do this a little bit later on, but I just thought we'd jump straight into like team news and predictions on that, because obviously we said the Brazilian stuff still is, as we're recording now, it still hasn't been resolved. I think someone correct me if I'm wrong, if something just came out now, but what would you go with if in terms of the whole team, if the Brazilian lads aren't there? Obviously Kelleher slots in, doesn't he, in goal. I mean, I don't think anyone would like to see Adrian. I mean, if it does happen, I'm not going on Twitter because the meltdown would just be real, won't it? Let's be honest. Keller should slot in there. But I think midfield is where we're looking, isn't it? Because that's obviously without Fab in the 6, you then got to kind of think a bit more about what you're going to do. But what would you do as a 3 in there if Fab was out?
Yeah, the funny thing is as well, I think with Fabinho potentially out as it stands, he is out. But I think if you take Fabinho out of that team, you're pretty much forced to play Henderson in the 6. So the big change really comes in who replaces Henderson. So you've got Henderson sitting in the holding position, and then you've probably got Naby Keita. You know, he's playing with good momentum at the minute, and depending on Harvey Elliott's injury, I think Harvey Elliott would be the other one, but I really wouldn't be surprised to see Thiago come in. Personally, for me, based on Elliott's injury, if he's not fit enough to play for England under 21s, you've got to question whether he's fit enough to play for Liverpool against a team like Leeds that run relentlessly for 90 minutes solid. You also think to yourself, okay, so maybe Henderson, Keita, and Thiago are probably the trio that I'd go for, I think, especially with James Milner not being fit.
Yeah, I think, I don't know if I prefer Thiago just because it might help us keep the ball better. But then in terms of, like you said, work rate, Harvey Elliott, I think he topped like the running charts in terms of distance covered in the last game. So you know that he's got that in the locker, and he won't stop running after the ball, which is what you want, and he's got the quality on the ball as well, which is just a double whammy in terms of fucking how good he is at 18. It's absolutely ridiculous. But Chris has just put there Hendo, Naby, Elliott, which is what we just said. Aiden's put Hendo, Keita, Thiago. Yeah, I think obviously Hendo on the 6. I think Keita's more comfortable on the left, isn't he? I think we've seen against Chelsea, Hendo obviously was in a left of the 3 position as opposed to the right, and I think you could tell that it was a little bit. He didn't know quite where to go in terms of like those forward runs and whatever. And I know the left hand side's a bit more defensive, isn't it, than the right is in terms of getting into around the penalty area and whatever else, and it's more like covering for the left back in that regard. But I think Keita on the left, he's proved, hasn't he, in the games that he's played, that he's more than adept on that left of a 3, isn't he?
Yeah, I think Naby Keita as well. But before he came to Liverpool as well, there was quite a few times that he did play the number 6 role. So he does have that physicality in him. When you watch him, when he's not injured and he's 100% fit, you can see that he's a strong lad. You know, he get anybody off the ball. He's a bit like Fabinho, and then he can be scrappy sometimes. Obviously, going forward is really where he shines. He's got that touch. He's got that shot. You know, he's got that eye for the pass. That's really where he shines. But he is capable of putting a good tackle in. So I think I wouldn't really be too worried about having Keita in the mix there. Like Aiden said, I think that could be a good shot. Yeah,
I think that's the thing. I mean, we've all been disappointed with the lack of maybe attacking signings or someone to replace Genie. I think that's been the constant narrative, hasn't it, on Twitter? Like, Genie's gone, where's the replacement? Which is understandable because you've lost a guy who plays 50 games there. I mean, obviously we've then incorporated Harvey Elliott into the squad, who's kind of in effect took that midfield role at the moment anyway, based on the 3 games, and he started two of the 3. But I think it's good for us if Harvey Elliott plays more games. I mean, he's looked quality, hasn't he? To be fair, that eye for the pass for an 18-year-old is. It's bizarre that he's that cool on the ball, and he's, like you said, he's got that work rate, he's got that creativity, and I think those little triangles with him and Salah and Trent, it's sometimes mesmerising, isn't it? Just because they're kind of on the same wavelength already, and he's only 2 starts into his Premier League tenure, so it's promising signs in it on that front.
It's crazy. The potential that kid has is unbelievable. I can't get the exact numbers up because I'll have to go through my tweets, and that's not good to watch or listen to. But there was a statistic going around. It shouldn't be too hard to find of Jack Grealish as an 18-year-old and the numbers that he posted in the Championship as an 18-year-old compared to the numbers Harvey Elliott posted in the Championship last season. And Elliott had more goals and assists than Jack Grealish at that age. And if you're thinking about the kind of player that Jack Grealish is now, £100 million to Man City.
Yeah.
if he's on that sort of path, we've got a gem. We already know we've got a gem, but when you're comparing them to stuff like that, because it was evident early on that Grealish was a bit of a prodigy, and I think that's the same for Elliott. I mean, he's came in, and it might not be good news for Curtis Jones, but he's came in and he's just took that midfield role, and he's not even put a foot wrong. You see him playing, and you forget that he's an 18-year-old. It's unbelievable. It's such an exciting time to be watching these kinds of young players coming to Liverpool.
Yeah, I mean, factored in that he's running out at Anfield to capacity crowds two games in a row, and he's just not phased. It's just like you try and visualize yourself as an 18-year-old doing that, and you'd be like, I'd be shitting my pants. Let's be honest, you'd be shitting your pants, wouldn't you? And he's just got that. I don't know if it's an arrogance or it's like just a really fucking optimal self-belief, isn't it? That he knows that he's got the quality, and that's what, if you want to break through and you want to be in and amongst this Liverpool team, you've got to have that in abundance, haven't you? And I think, like you said, even like Curtis Jones, we haven't really even talked about, which goes back to the squad depth again. He hasn't even, I don't think he's even featured so far, has he, as well? So I think for this one, I mean, I think someone said in the comments earlier that it would be good to see him coming in. But I mean, it's going to be a task to get the shirt back off Harvey Elliott, isn't it, for Curtis? But we can't write Curtis Jones off because he's still so young, and I think he played like 30 odd games last year, and I think that was obviously mostly down to how many injuries we had, but he did well, didn't he? Especially towards the back end of the season. I think he's definitely someone that we need to rely on, because I think if you look at the press today, I think Leeds were offering him for, like, trying to get him on a loan deal, and Klopp said no. So I think that tells you all you need to know, that Klopp obviously rates him and wants to have him around the squad because he trusts him.
Yeah, I mean, Curtis Jones, I mean, if basically you're not handed a chance by Jurgen Klopp in Liverpool's senior team if you don't do it behind the scenes, if you don't, get his trust, there's no way you're getting the game. We've seen with some youngsters that they've sort of came in, we've not seen them again, so you don't know what's going to happen with them. But Curtis Jones, like you say, just 20 years old, still very, very young. Steven Gerrard wasn't exactly setting the world alight as an 18-year-old, so... that's quite a big comparison, of course, but, we are sort of, you couldn't write Steven Gerrard off as a 19-year-old, you know what I mean? Curtis Jones, 20, an impressive player. I really want to see more of him this season. Like you say, he featured, I think it was 34 games last season in all competitions, which is insane for a 19-year-old that came out the academy. It's brilliant. I want to see more of him this season, but like you say, I think we might see a little bit less of him. In one respect, hopefully we see a little bit less of him because, like you say, last season it was down to injuries as the reason, but he's there for depth. He's going to be there in the cups, and he's got that self-belief. Some people might call it arrogance, but I think it's just self-belief. He believes in his own ability, and he's boss.
That's what I mean. And like you said, there's plenty of games. Like I think we've got Norwich coming up. There's AC Milan on Wednesday. So I mean, if Klopp throws that's the thing you want. You want them to get to a level where if Klopp throws them in, you don't go, oh shit, he's thrown a youngster in. I think that's what we used to do years ago when we had like a proper good 11, and then maybe the reserves were like the young lads, and the manager would bring them on towards the end, and you're like, you don't know much about them. But it's nice to have these youngsters getting chances, and then when they are thrown, you've got that comfort. You go, right, yeah, I know what this kid's about, and I know how good he is, and I know that he's not gonna, I don't know, do anything silly or whatever else, and you know what they're all about. So there's that kind of comfort as well in it. So
it's that as well. I mean, you like a few years ago, you're talking about, and it's all due respect to the players that that I'm going to mention, but like we had in Curtis Jones's place, we had Jordan Rossiter. Now Jordan Rossiter, obviously, talented footballer, he's done well for himself, but Curtis Jones is on a different level in terms of that young player that we can back, we can rely on. Sort of that backup. It's a lot better, and it is testament to the sort of like atmosphere that Jurgen Klopp's built at the club, along with his coaching staff as well.
Yeah, because I think, like you said, the roster's a perfect example. It's one of them where you look at them and go, could they be a prodigy in 5 to 6 years? But I think with Curtis Jones, you kind of know that he's going to be there for the long haul. I mean, I think he's proven that last year, especially tough fucking season last year. Obviously, no fans and whatever else playing that many games. Obviously, he's still a young kid. He's going to have bad games. I think people need to realize that you don't always get a fucking 7 out of 10 from a 19, 20-year-old. You've got to have a bit of patience in that regard. But See, let's jump back into the comments here because there's loads I need to run through here. But we've got Yash has just put Kelleher needs to step up and cement his place as a number 2. I mean, that's another one. Like, I think he's really good. I do. I know. I think he played 5 games last year, which I know isn't very much. So the sample size is very small. But from what we've seen, I think it's promising, isn't it? I mean, when you look a few years back when he made a few appearances in the Cups and that, compared to what he is now, I believe it's like chalk and cheese because I think he's came on leaps and bounds in terms of having that belief in himself, and I think that stems from Klopp being his manager and being with Klopp for a longer period of time.
Yeah, I mean, behind the scenes, he's definitely been working hard because when he first came onto the scene, like you say, as a young lad, he was just this skinny Irish lad that, you know, no one had really heard of, and now he's in a position where he's just this big Irish fella, and he does a job between the sticks. You know, I quite like him myself in terms of needing to step up to cement his place as number 2. I think he probably done that last season, to be honest with you. I think I get the idea of further cementing it because obviously Adrian's got the experience on him. You know, there's obviously question marks over whether Kelleher is decent enough to step up for Alisson over an extended period of time. But keeping clean sheets in the Premier League and the Champions League, considering his standard in the squad, there's no short measure of that, you know what I mean? It's very impressive for the player of his standing. So I think, I think further cementing it would be good. And if he plays against Leeds and keeps a clean sheet, I think that'll be a massive step in the right direction. There, just to touch on what Yash is saying there.
Yeah, I think it comes back to, I mean, it's not like a broken record, but it's about giving these kids, I mean, he's not a kid now, he's 22, but it's giving these maybe the reserve players the time on the field, so then you don't, like you said with Harvey Elliott and Curtis Jones, when they do get put in, you don't feel nervous, especially with a goalkeeper. You need to feel at ease, and if we're feeling unease, if Adrian's in, you can bet that the defenders maybe not say it out loud, but in the mind go, is he going to like underhit a pass? Is he going to do this? What he done against Aston Villa, whatever else? And I think it all plays into it, especially now players have got social media accounts and whatever they're reading and whatever else. There's a load of like factors you've got to factor into it, to be fair. But I think Kelleher, I mean, solid, very solid, and with his feet, he's just. I honestly think he's probably one of the better second goalies in a division with his feet, because I mean, in terms of Alisson with his feet, obviously he's just takes the piss, like chipping the ball over people's heads and all that. Like in his first, I think after his 3rd game, he was chipping the ball over people's heads, and we were like, "Fucking hell, Alisson, calm down, mate." And then he fucking fucked up against Leicester, didn't he, the week later? But he's just got. I think you need to have that aura, and I think Kelleher has got that, and I think that's what we need, and I think that's what Klopp kind of breeds into his youngsters. I mean, I think I seen an interview with Harvey Elliott last week, I think, and he was talking about that he doesn't feel phased when he goes on the field because Klopp gives him that license to, if it goes wrong, it doesn't matter, as long as you try and rectify that, and as long as you try your best when you're on the field, that's all that matters. And I think it's having that mentality throughout the whole team, especially in goal when you're 22 years old. There's a lot of pressure. It's having that cool head, isn't it, to kind of which then I think filters through to the rest of the team.
Yeah, I mean, you know, just to touch on what you're saying there about Jurgen Klopp, I think, and it's no surprise to anybody that Jurgen Klopp's a great leader, but I think it's what sets him apart from other leaders. Some of the best managers in the world, Mourinho, for example. I think that's sort of an area where he lacks. I think that's Klopp's got him there, because where Klopp will sort of, if there's any problems, like if a young player makes any mistakes, he'll stand in front of the young player and say, listen, I put them in. It was, you know, I threw them in the deep end. Maybe I shouldn't have, you know, we'll work on things in the training ground. And then he'll go away and he'll speak to Elliott like the way he has done. Whereas in the past, the likes of Mourinho have just came out and just gone, yeah, X, Y, Z player, you know, they didn't perform too well, didn't do what I said, and just throws them under the bus, which isn't the best. But yeah, I know what you're saying about Kelleher there. He's got that cool head. He's got that cool aura about him. He is that sort of command and presence. I think one sort of thing that really sums up Adrian in his current position, obviously he came into the squad. He'd done very well in his first few months, obviously won silverware very early on. Great stuff. But there's a moment where he runs into Joe Gomez. I'm sure we've all seen the GIF or, you know, the video, and Joe Gomez just looks at him just like, what are you doing, mate?
What's going on? Yeah.
That says quite a lot, you know what I mean?
I think so. And I think that, like I said before, it kind of filters into what are people really thinking as defenders? Because I mean, I do like Adrian, and I'm happy that we've got a good, solid third keeper who's got a lot of experience, because Kelleher has picked up a few injuries, and we don't want a situation where both get injured and we haven't got anyone there, and we don't want to rely on like a Pitaluga who's just came in from Brazil and whatever else, and good promise, but you don't want to be throwing him into a game where an appearance could be more of a hindrance than a help, which is what you don't want. But let's just fly through a few more of these comments. So Chris has got start with Elliot if he has the legs, but then if the tempo. Am I drunk or am I not reading this right? Start with Elliot if he has the legs, but then
Oh wait, there is it meant to say then Thiago? That's just autocorrect, is it?
I don't know, Chris. Let us know. I don't know. Yeah. Are you on the pop there, Chris, or is it just me not being able to read England very well? Just put another one here though, and I think let's just check this one, Chris, with Naby to break down the Leeds attacks and counter quick. Yeah, that makes sense, Chris. Yeah, I think maybe just a spelling mistake on the one. Another question that Doug's just put in: could anyone see Tsimikas for Robbo or rest him for Milan? I think this is quite an interesting one, because I know Robbo, obviously against Chelsea, he came off towards the end, didn't he? And I think he looked a bit, well, let's be honest, he looked fucking goosed, didn't he? He looked absolutely knackered. And I think Tsimikas came on and he's got that. I mean, for Greece in midweek, he was just on rampage and runs, and he's got that in his locker. And as long as he stays fit, I think we've got a really good second left back on our hands. And I think it's like I said before with the other players, these players, I get, like you say 6 months ago, that Tsimikas would be getting touted as playing away to Leeds at Elland Road and over Robbo. That in majority people would be going play Tsimikas. You'd be like, you're talking absolute shit. But it's nice to have options, isn't it? I think Tsimikas has proven that he's a proper fighter, especially the Burnley game where he was like just fighting off Burnley players left, right, and centre. And I think he's got the quality, hasn't he? So I think what the point I'm making is we wouldn't be disappointed or we wouldn't be shocked if Klopp does throw in a Tsimikas for this one.
Yeah, I think that's it. Over the last few games, Tsimikas has proved himself. He was doing it in pre-season as well, but obviously doing it in the Premier League is different kettle of fish. And yeah, like I say, the idea of starting Tsimikas against Leeds in the Premier League is definitely something. A year ago we'd have been thinking, Christ, what's going on here? You know what I mean? We're thinking, all right, maybe we put a half-crock James Milner in instead. Sort of Tsimikas hasn't proved himself. It's a bit of a question mark, but now he has done, and like you say, it's a solid second option. I wouldn't feel slightly uncomfortable if Tsimikas played instead of Robbo, and I would immediately jump to the conclusion, the commenter said there, that Robbo's getting rested for the Milan game because, Champions League.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, like games coming quick and thick and fast, you want to give these players minutes, so then when they do play, they're not kind of taking 60 minutes to get into the stride. You want them to be tip top from minute one. But Paul's just put a comment there, Robbo have 4 games in 11 days, and I think maybe that comes into it, and that's the thing. It's nice to have options. That's the thing. You don't want to be, in terms of Necho Williams on the other side, I don't know if the drop in qualities are obviously a lot bigger there in terms of Necho, who was obviously a solid deputy if we need him, but I think Tsimikas has proven that he's more than up to the task, which is nice, and it's good for us as well. But Aiden's just put, I think Robbo will be okay to play for Scotland, so his fitness will be right, but Tsimikas is quality cover, which is, perfect. What else have we got here? I'm just going to fly through any others, but we'll move on to in terms of the rest of we've just touched on, obviously, the starting 11. We've picked the midfield. I don't think, obviously, Bobby's injured either way. If he's suspended because of the Brazil and FA are being knobheads, or he's injured, either way he's out. Yeah. And then, obviously, Jota comes in for him, doesn't he? So I think that's pretty nailed on in terms of that. But in terms of Leeds, I think Chris actually put a comment in earlier about Leeds. He did, yeah. Let's have a look. So he put, we have depth to cover Fab and Ali, but if Leeds lose Rafinha, the next option is Costa. I think that's a good point, isn't it? If the Brazilian lads aren't in, I watched all Leeds TV. The guy on there, Joe, who's proper, got his head screwed on, sound fella. He was on Redburn and he was talking about if the Brazilian lads aren't available, does that affect Leeds more than it affects us? Because Rafinha is kind of the hub for all the creativity in that Leeds side.
Yeah, I mean, Leeds losing Rafinha to be akin to us losing Salah. You know, it's a massive knock. Obviously, that doesn't really. That's not to say Fabinho isn't a big loss and Alisson isn't a big loss, but they are. But because we can call upon Kelleher and we can put Henderson in the holding position and play like Keita and Thiago, we're not exactly short-staffed. And you know, based on how Leeds have performed this season versus how based on how we've performed this season. Obviously, this game is going to be a more difficult. You know, you'd expect it to be more difficult for them, even though we're going to their stadium. It's going to be a difficult game for them. Whereas for us, we're probably going into it expecting to win. Certainly, the pundits will be expecting us to win. Don't know if the players will be that. I don't know if they'll be assuming that much. But yeah, I think them missing out on Rafinha would be massive. And to be honest with you, it'd be a shame. I never like to see players get taken out of games. I think both sets of teams should always be able to put out full strength sides, injuries and suspensions and stuff like that, unless obviously deserve like red cards and stuff like that. It's never good to see players missing. And just sort of curious whether Dan James might come in, maybe. I think he's a new signing. Maybe he'd come in on the right-hand side. I'm not too sure. I've not been paying too much attention to Leeds and sort of the involvement James has had since he signed from United.
Yeah, I think Dan James, obviously, he's got that just blistering pace, hasn't he? So if he does start, I would be keeping an eye on him anyway, because he's got the capability to run past most fullbacks in the league. So that'll be an interesting battle if he's on the right up against the Simicas, for example. I mean, that might come into Klopp's thinking. If he thinks Dan James is going to start, he might put a Robbo in just because he's a bit more solid defensively and a bit more sturdy. But I mean, I don't know. There's so many question marks over so many players, isn't he? Still, and we still don't know what's going on. So that's the only annoying thing, really. Usually we just go, yeah, we know the side. There we go. This is what's going to be. Whereas now, because of fucking Brazilian FA, we don't have a fucking clue. But I've just put a comment in there about score predictions, and Ravi's read me mind. He's gone for Liverpool 3, Leeds 1. Paul's gone for 3-1 as well. Got Yash with 2-1. We've got Yuki with 3-1. Aiden 3-1. A lot of 3-1s there, Steve. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's going to be 3-1, doesn't it? No, I mean, I can see why there's not much confidence in a clean sheet because we don't know the situation with Alisson, don't know the situation with Fabinho. So obviously the defense is going to be a little bit, a little bit harder fought, I'd say, in the Leeds game, especially against a team that, what do they call it? Near the ball. They just run at the ball for 90 minutes solid. It's crazy. They won't slow down for a minute. We might sort of take the foot off the gas in the last 10 if we've got 2 or 3 goals. I think 3. I know Leeds are not performing at the best so far this season, but they are still a very good side. I think sort of scoring 3 past them in their home stadium is always a tough one. The international break can sort of affect momentum as well. So I'm going to be a little bit cautious myself and say Liverpool win 2-1, but it's effectively 2-0. We just sort of relax a little bit too much in the last 10 minutes and concede. Maybe Dan James comes on and just ballistas past Simicas, like you say. It might happen. You never know. What would you say?
I think I'm going with, I'm basing it off if the Brazilian FA just stop being knobheads and we get the Brazilian lads back in, then I'm thinking 2-0, maybe 2-1 if the Brazilian lads aren't. And like you said, it might be a bit more of a different proposition with, like I say, Keller coming in and no Fabinho in there, who's his standing in the Liverpool starting 11 is just unquestioned. He's one of the first names on the team sheet, isn't he? But Paul's just put 8-0 to us lot as ever. Fucking hell, I wish I was that confident. Paul, put that on a bet, lad, and just let me know if that happens and how much you're going to get for that. Chris has just put 2-0 to Liverpool, obviously. Fucking hell, Chris, I was going to say you're definitely on the pop if you're saying 2-0 Leeds there. Right. I think we'll leave it there, Steve, because we're getting on for 40 minutes there. And I did say to you before we started that we're going to keep this to 25-30. And I did say the comments usually tend to push it over, which they have, which I'm not complaining about at all. I love it. It's been boss again, just to get back into footy. And obviously the comments were flying there. I had to try and keep up with them. So I appreciate everyone again for jumping in and providing your insight on the game. It's always appreciated and always will be. But yeah, thanks to everyone in the comments. Thanks to Steve for jumping on. If you haven't subscribed yet, or if you haven't liked the video yet, then please go and do that, because the more we see that, me and Jay, we just want to go and make more stuff. And obviously Jay's doing a lot of boss documentary stuff. I'm trying to focus on some other good stuff as well, interviews with some famous fans and whatever else, which we've got coming up, which should be interesting. And I can't wait to show you them. But yeah, we'll be back again on Sunday for I think this will be our first instant match review. So we're going to be doing it straight after the game. So 6:30 on Sunday night. And yeah, I can't wait. Hopefully we'll be celebrating what is going to be a boss Liverpool win. Hopefully, like Paul said, 8-0. Fucking hell, 8-0. We'll be first on match of the day. Ronaldo's fucking debut will get ruined because we'll be first on match of the day. Do you know what I mean? That'll be sound. But yeah, nice one for everyone jumping in. Nice one to stay again. We'll see you on Sunday at 6:30. And yeah, see you next time. Up the Reds.